If you're building AI agents today in n8n, there's one thing that you need to know. Most agents are stateless, meaning they don't have any memory associated and they don't remember context from previous conversations. You've probably tried to fix this with LangChain, Mem0, or some other vector database tool, but these tools can get overcomplicated and costly pretty quick. That's why in this video, I'm going to show you how to build AI agents in n8n with a layer of persistent memory using a tool called Backboard.io. And so this is the build out we're going to use today. And I'm going to walk you through this completely from scratch. And we have this tool, this persistent memory layer for Backboard.io that we're going to call in our AI agent. So what we're doing here is we have an assistant. We're running this workflow, this particular setup one time. Now what this setup is it creates a new agent for us within Backboard.io. It creates a thread. This agent remembers context across different conversations and different threads, and it has your company's information through this download file module that we're going to incorporate to use as context for the AI agent. And this is all one simple setup inside of n8n using Backboard.io. So let's get into how this works. So this workflow, this piece of the workflow just runs one time. And what it is we are creating an assistant within Backboard.io. We are creating a thread, which is a space in memory. Essentially, the thread is that layer of memory that we have in Backboard.io. This thread functionality is exactly what makes this agent stand out from all other stateless agents that you can build in n8n today. So with this thread, we have a particular set of memory that's associated with the assistant that we just created in this step. Then what do we do with this thread and this agent? We add context, we add information. So I have a Google Doc that we're going to download the contents of that file, and then we're going to upload that file to our assistant. So in our case, for this video, this is the context that we're going to upload. This is just an FAQ document so that your agent will be trained on specific information that customers might ask about your business. So we have all this information in a Google Doc. We're putting it here. I'll show you how this works, how this download file step works. But essentially, we're uploading the contents of that file to our assistant. That is just a one-time run that we're doing this. Now we have an agent, we have a thread. Now we can just open up a chat and start having a conversation with this agent, and this agent will remember the entire conversation. So in this example, I've actually taken it a step further beyond having a chat in n8n, and we actually have a chatbot on our website that I've created here in Lovable. And so I'll show you how to set this up. It gave us this professional looking website, and we have this chat widget here that is fully functional and that's trained on this document that we have right here. And so let's ask it a specific question saying, what is our business name? What do we do? Based on the information available, what is called Digital Peak Strategy? What do you do? Digital Peak Strategy offers AI systems that help real estate agents and teams with their lead follow-up, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so all of that is coming straight from this chatbot training. And so now this agent has a thread associated with it. And so through more and more conversations, it gets smarter and smarter, and it remembers all of the context within that thread, and so it's able to respond more intelligently, and it just ends up being a much better output because it has that memory associated with it. Okay, so that is the setup, and we're going to go ahead and set this up completely from scratch. And so I've created a brand new n8n workflow for us to go ahead and get started. But before that, the first thing we need to do is go over to Backboard.io. If you haven't used this tool before, feel free to sign up, create a new account associated with your email. Once you do that and log in, you'll be able to see what I see here. And you can go over to, the first thing you want to do actually is to manage API keys, create a brand new API key, copy that API key, save it somewhere so that you can use it and call it within this n8n workflow. We're going to look at all the specific functions that we're able to do here in Backboard.io. So right here we have our quick start, and these are the key things that we're going to take right now. Is we're going to create a brand new assistant. We're going to create a brand new thread. As I mentioned, we have this workflow that we just want to run once to initialize our agent, to build an agent and to train it and to create that thread that we're then going to use in our chat functionality. Okay, so let's go ahead and start out this initialization workflow, which is first we have a trigger. So when clicking execute workflow, we're just going to have this manual trigger that gets things going. Click execute workflow just to make sure this works. Cool, we have green executed successfully. We are all good there. Now what do we need to do? Well, we need to use this node called HTTP request. Now this is essentially just to make our API call to backboard.io. And so we're going to call this create assistant. And we are going to follow the exact steps here within the create assistant documentation. So we have our base URL dash assistance as the URL we're going to call. Make sure I spelled assistance correctly. Okay, create that as a post request. We're going to send a header of an x.api key. So if you're looking at the documentation, all you have to do is follow this exactly where we have your API key, you have your base URL, you have this header filled out. And now for the JSON body, we just need a name of our agent and a description of our agent. That's all we need. So for here, I'm going to paste in my API key, and then we're going to send in a body specifically with our name of our agent and then a description of our agent. I'm going to name this Q&A agent. Are there to answer questions about digital peak strategy using the FAQ documentation that's provided. Okay, so I wrote you are there to answer questions about digital peak strategy using the FAQ documentation that is provided. And so we are gonna click off of that, and now what we can do is have this run just to test it. Perfect. So it says that we have this output. We've called backboard.io. We have our API call that ran successfully. We have a Q&A agent that we just built, and this is the description. So that's perfect. We can also see, what the embedding provider is, the model name, all those things we don't need to worry about too much. What we're going to do next is we're going to create a thread. And so again, we're going to need the HTTP request module. We're going to need a post request, and let's go over here to create thread to see the specifics of what we need. So we have dash assistance, dash assistant ID, dash threads. Essentially similar to the previous module, we need dash assistance, dash assistant ID. We are going to actually get from the output of the previous module, dash threads. Perfect, okay. Putting in the headers, similar to the other, to the module we just created. And then we're going to click send body, but we're not going to put anything there. Reason is in the documentation, they have a JSON body, but it's empty. So we want to make sure we enable that so that it works properly. Now we're going to click run, see if that works. Okay, perfect. That ran successfully. And now we have our thread ID. Now we're going to need that thread ID in a second, but let's go ahead. Let's just make sure we name this properly and that it says create thread. That's what we just did. So we have an assistant, we have a thread. Super, super easy so far. Now what we need to do is have some documentation or somewhere that we have information that we want to train this AI agent on. In my case, I just have it in a very simple Google Doc all laid out. So you'd want to make sure you think through what information you want to train this AI agent on and bring that information somewhere. If it's in a Google Doc, I can show you how to do this exactly like this. So what we're going to need is we have a Google Drive module within n8n, and there's an action that we can select to download this particular file. So if you download this particular file, that's the operation. How do we grab the specific file? If you saw, I just copied and pasted that URL here. So that is referencing the correct file. First, you want to make sure you're connecting your Google Drive credentials. There's a few steps to do the OAuth or the online authentication. And so you'd want to follow these steps here. I won't go through it in this video, but it is quite simple. It just takes a couple minutes to essentially give n8n permissions for it to access your Google, workspace, your workspaces within Google Drive, Google Slides, all this other things. So you have to grant it explicit access to do read, write, all these things to your Google Docs in this case. Once you do that, it'll give you your client ID and client secret, and then you will put that in right there, and then you'll have that connection work properly. So that's essentially how that works to connect your Google Drive. But again, follow those steps in the documentation and you'll be good to go. So we're going to execute step here on this module. Perfect, works. And what this is doing, it's actually taking the documentation that we have and converting it into binary. So it's converting it into ones and zeros, which is the format that is needed for passing that into our AI agent. So our AI agent needs it in binary representation. And so it can't read this text like we can. It can only read the ones and zeros. So once we've downloaded the file, now what are we going to do? We're going to upload the file to our assistant. So we're going to name this first. Okay, upload a file to an assistant. That is another step within Backboard.io to upload a document to an assistant. So in this case, we have our assistant ID and then we have the file. So we're going to follow these steps exactly and get this one set up. So when we upload file, it's going to be a post request. For this specific URL, we have the base URL first. Let me grab that, and including that dynamic assistant ID that we're bringing over. So assistants-assistant ID/documents. Let's make sure that we're calling the right one here. So we're going to go back to the the create assistant module, and we're going to grab the output there, which is the assistant ID. You're going to drag that into the proper place. And so now it references the output of that module, specifically the assistant ID. So that is our URL here. We got that. We're going to send in our API key, and we're going to keep this body empty, but we're just still going to enable it. Okay, so once we've done some of these things, we also want to add the content type. As we can see here, another one of our headers for this step is we have a content type of multipart-form-data. Essentially, that's just clarifying what information we're going to pass and what type that information is. In this case, it's a multi-part step. So in our body, we're going to want to pass an n8n binary file. So actually for our content type, we're going to pass form-data, which is what matches this content type here. Now within that form-data, we have individual body parameters. Sorry, that's actually going to be data is right here, which is the data field name, which essentially the output of this download file module was a file called data. Let me share this really fast. So this is what that looks like. It is a binary file called data. And so we're going to reference that here. The input data field name is called data, and the actual name of the parameter, we're going to grab that from Backboard.io, which is right here. It's just called file. So we're going to reference the name of the parameter as file. The type is a binary file, and we're bringing in the output of the download file module. Awesome. So we just ran this, and we see that the output is successful with this file name downloaded. And so now what that means is our assistant is trained, right? We have our AI assistant that we just created, and we have that file uploaded as context. Now we need to bring over our chat functionality so that we can actually have a conversation with our assistant. So the first thing we need to do is have a trigger. And the trigger in this case is when a chat message is received. So our trigger is when a chat message is received. So we're going to type in trigger, and it's going to be a chat trigger. So when chat message is received, do X, Y, and Z. In this case, we are actually going to put our chat on our website in Lovable. So I'll show you how to do this in a second. Let's go ahead and make this chat publicly available. That's going to give us this chat URL, which we're going to use in just 1 second. And we're going to make this an embedded chat because, again, this is an embedded chatbot on our website. So we have an embedded chat, and we have the instructions that we're going to select here. So it said follow the instructions here. I selected these instructions. We're going to go to this documentation page, and we are going to copy this CDN embed, and we're going to use this in just 1 second. And so we've copied this CDN embed code, and then we're going to paste this over. If you have a separate note sheet, I would recommend you paste that over here. So what I'm going to do is paste this CDN code right here instead of this placeholder. And this is going to be used in our prompt for Lovable in just 1 second. So here we have to integrate chatbot, place the following prompts. I've created this Google Doc specifically for this, and we're going to need this chat URL within n8n, within this chat trigger module that we just created here. So we have this chat URL, copy this, and what we're going to need to do is paste our production webhook URL right here. So this is the URL that is going to make this CDN embed or this like HTML script work properly. So we're gonna copy all of this, and this is now our prompt into Lovable, into a brand new project. So within Lovable, we can create our brand new web page with our chatbot. So right here, we can just create an empty page, but input the following code element to show this chat widget. We're gonna go ahead and click enter. And now this is creating a brand new project, a brand new page with this chat functionality. Okay, perfect. So we've just ran this. We gave it a second to think. It's created this for us here. So we see this is the embedded chat widget. This looks great. Now, if you see, we're not actually able to type anything in. The reason for that is this workflow that we're working on right here is not currently enabled. It's not currently active. Now, when it's active, we're gonna say, got it. So now that it's active, when I go back to Lovable and I reload the page and I click here, boom, there we see we can actually type something in. Perfect. And we see this random JSON object for send message, chat input hi. Okay, that is great. The reason it looks like that is because we have not set up anything beyond the chat message received, but it does work as intended. So that's great. What we're going to want to do is pass in the chat message to our AI assistant, and then have the AI assistant respond and pass that response back over to our chatbot here to paste as output. So what we're going to do next is create our AI agent. Okay, so let's add our AI agent now. So what we're going to need is another HTTP request module. And so this is going to be called send message to assistant. That's really what we're doing here, is we're sending a message to our assistant, and we're going to use the particular functionality of add message to a specific thread. So we're going to follow these steps exactly and just set this up right now. So we have our headers. First thing we need is our x.api-key. We need our API key, which I'll paste in there. We also need content-type, which is multi-part form-data. Let's confirm that that is correct. Content-type is multi-part form-data. We have our API key. And then we have this URL that we need here as well. So let's copy that URL, bring that over here. That is just part of the URL. We also need the base, which I can grab from one of these previous modules, grab this base URL. So that's great. Okay, so with this, we also need a path of our specific thread ID. And so in this case, we've just copied this random thread string. That's actually not the string that we're using. The string that we're going to want to use is the output of this. So if you remember, I mentioned save this for just another second. We are going to use this thread ID right now. We're going to paste in to this URL right here. Click paste, boom. So that is a specific thread ID that's associated with the assistant that we've created. So that's that space in memory that we have that also has this document uploaded as context. So that's why that thread ID is really, really important. That's really the key step here, is to make sure that we're passing in this message to an AI assistant that has our information to use. So we have that. We have our API key that I'm just going to paste in. And then of course, we actually have the chat message that we want to send that we're going to send right here. So we have a send body, and that's where this chat message is going to go. I'm going to execute this node just so that I can pass the output of this node. So we want to pass the output of our trigger as input for the next, for our AI assistant here. So we're passing in the chat input, and now what is the name of that parameter? The name is content. So we're going to pass that as content, right? And then what else do we want to add to this message? Well, a few things we can add. We can add memory, right? So allowing this agent to remember past conversations associated with this thread, we want to add this message as part of that. So we're going to turn on memory. So we're going to say memory mode is auto. We're going to use this documentation here that says search and write to memory. We're going to say that is auto. Perfect. We can also specify things like the specific model. We can, add specific files to this message. We can do a few other things here. For this, I'm going to keep it simple and just use these two. Now let's go ahead and test this to see how this works. Perfect. Hello, how can I assist you today? Are you looking for information on digital peak strategy? So it knows our data, right? It has this data trained. It knows what we want to do. So that is perfect. So we have this assistant. We're sending a message. That's great. Now, how do we send back a message so that it comes in to our chat widget here? And the way we do that is we use a response webhook. So I can go into this in much more detail on another video, but essentially a webhook is just a way for two different systems to pass messages back and forth to each other. And in low code or no code tools like n8n, webhooks are really, really powerful because the main value with this tool like n8n is to be able to connect different pieces or different softwares together very simply. And so webhooks, to be able to send messages back and forth is really, really a key piece of this. So let's go ahead, respond to webhook message here. And what we're going to set this up with is we're going to respond as text, and we're going to pass in the content, which is essentially the output of our AI agent. Our AI agent said something. We're going to throw that back to the response webhook, and then we're going to let that run. So we're going to click execute step. Perfect. And so this just outputted the same thing. Now this allows it to go directly to the chat widget right here. So we just need to make sure that when chat message received allows for our respond to webhook to work properly. So we clicked this add field and we clicked the response mode. So we specified that the response mode is going to be using the respond to webhook node. And that is this node right here. Once we've done that, let's go ahead and test this out. So we've saved the workflow. Let's reload the page in Lovable and let's see what this looks like. Let's just type hi. Hello, how are you today? Do you have any questions about digital peak strategy or anything else? Perfect. Okay, so what do we do as a business? What does digital peak strategy do as a business? Very, very basic question. Specialize in digital marketing and business strategy services, blah, blah, blah. Okay, awesome. So it is trained on our documentation and it works properly. So we have our chatbot working, as you can see, and it added all of that to memory. So as we continue to have conversations, it'll add all of that as context to use in future responses as well. So that is it for this. The only thing I'm going to do here now is show you how to add our website, right? So all we have here is a prompt. So the way that I've been able to create this website is create a standard website for my local business using these FAQs. So after you have this chatbot, you can go ahead and tell Lovable to create a website for my business. And you can prompt it, you can add more context, you can copy and paste some different text that you have in order to help you create a website. You can put color designs, all that stuff. So that is essentially how you use something like Lovable and using webhooks to actually create your AI agent. So that is how we set up this chatbot using our memory layer of Backboard.io, allowing us to upload files, to create an assistant, to create a specific thread, and then to chat with that assistant, all within one tool. Now, we could also change the specific models. We can have it do a lot more complex things here. But for this video, that's mainly the context that I wanted to share and show you how to set this up from scratch. So hopefully this was helpful, and I will see you all in the next one.